Hi, this is Sarah. We're going to try a new thing where we intro each episode before the theme song. This episode is going to be about Joseph Swetnam, a fencer from the 1500s and 1600s. Among other things, he wrote a text about how much he hated women that got him so relentlessly dunked on by other authors that we still use a word coined just to describe him: misogynist. Our last two episodes were pretty heavy, but this one is more about the joy of watching a guy who sucks get demolished. Enjoy.
There's really nothing real. There is no real. And that's what's called the postmodern mentality.
I couldn't resist the worst racist remark.
The adventure of life justifies its suffering.
I don't want to see him having political succubus with goblins.
We'll do it live. Okay.
Is Trump going to have babies with a goblin?
We'll do it live.
And turn against us like Darth Vader?
Do it live.
Now listen, you
right calling names
you in your goddamn face, and you'll stay plastered.
I was going to have a guest speaker, but the person I had invited in died.
Some level of masochism.
Okay. Any fun anecdotes from this week? Any good updates? Have you been doing this week, Sarah?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to talk about daily life updates and stuff because everything is just so wild in the political sphere. We kind of have this internal rule of don't talk too much about current events.
It's so easy to just be oh, it's two people and they're just rehashing the news and the discourse and the whatever. That podcast exists in thousands of copies.
But at the same time, we're not, as of recording, even 3 weeks into 2026. And already this year is so insane.
You're going to get coffee and the president is a pedophile?
Exactly. Okay, let's get into today's topic. Helen, have you heard of this thing called misogyny?
Let's pretend for the listener that I haven't.
In Greek, it's just woman hater, right? Just those two words put together. Technically, as a word, it's existed for a long time. But it didn't exist in English until the 1600s. And it was coined in English to refer to a particular guy, Joseph Swetnam. And that is the guy we're talking about today.
Okay, so you went and you were we got to talk about the OG misogynist. Okay, I like this.
Exactly.
I'm really excited.
Joseph Swetnam was an English fencer and author. Biographical detail is very sparse about Joseph, but scholarship and his writings suggest that he was probably born in the 1560s or 1570s, possibly in Bristol, England, which is in the relatively sparsely populated West Country. He seems to have spent a lot of time in Plymouth, England, which is also in the West Country. But he had 2 books printed, so he almost certainly spent some time in London. Being a fencer in this time period doesn't mean being an athlete or a performer of some kind. It means being a soldier who has business training.
Okay.
We know that he eventually dies overseas, so that suggests that he had professional military service, and he was probably overseas campaigning when he died.
Okay.
This is the level of biographical detail we're working with, and I'm sorry, but that's not going to change. We really don't know a lot about this guy. He publishes his first book in 1615. We will circle back to that, but he publishes his second book in 1617, and I'm going to send you a scan of the cover.
The School of the Noble and Worthy Science of Defense. Being the first of any Englishman's invention which professed the said science, so plainly described that any man may quickly come to the true knowledge of their weapons with small pains and little practice. Okay, so it's how to fight.
Yeah, pretty much. And on the cover, we've got this kind of charming, I think, wood engraving style depiction of 2 guys with absolutely massive swords just going at it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The swords are as big as they are.
A surprising amount of it is saying that you need to practice a lot. So this shit about small pains and little practice is kind of a scam to get you in the door. Another part of this cover is, you may not have caught it, but he is explicitly claiming to have founded the first school of defense in England, an actual school you can go to and get trained. There's no evidence of this, but it's also not that implausible that he just founded it somewhere where the records didn't survive. He also says that the way this book came about is that he was the fencing instructor for Prince Henry, and Prince Henry read the book and was like, wow, this is so good, man. You gotta publish this. And then Prince Henry died. And then he goes on for a page about how cool Prince Henry was when he was alive, and how he was such a good musician, and such a good conversationalist, and blah, 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 blah. So Prince Henry actually did have a swordsmanship tutor. His name is in the records. It was not this guy. Also, certain passages in this book are plagiarized. So we can't exactly take him at his word.
Well, okay. The plagiarism thing is interesting. I would say it was pretty common for people to publish books and just paste other pieces of books inside books. I don't know if I'm ready to condemn him as a plagiarist yet.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that.
Yeah, I also noticed that was just the main title and the first subtitle, and then there's a bunch of other description, and I like the also many other good and profitable precepts and counsels for the managing of quarrels and ordering thy life in many other matters. It's just kind of a bunch of other random bullshit I just decided to throw in here.
Right.
Which is very charming.
Here's his first two sentences.
In setting out of a book, friendly reader, this I know, that there is no better a thing to be observed than order, for except there be an order in all things, all runneth to confusion. But what do I mean to talk of orders, which am no scholar, nor have no learning, but only a little experience, which God and nature hath bestowed upon me?
Okay, second sentence. Are you ready?
As it is impossible to build a church without lime or stone, no more can a workman work without tools, yet to avoid idleness, something I will make of it, although I cannot make it sound to so good a tune as I would, for want of learning. For I was never at Oxford, but while I baited my horse, nor at Cambridge, but while one Sturbridge fair lasted. Wherefore, if you do examine me concerning learning, I shall answer you as the fellow did the gentleman, who, asking him the way to London, a pokeful of plums, sir, said he, or as he which came from a sermon was asked what he heard there, he said it was a good sermon, and the preacher spoke well. But he could not tell one word what he said. No more can I answer one word scholar like or according to learning, yet both at Oxford and Cambridge I looked upon the scholars, and they looked upon me, and so I became a little the older, but never the wiser. Wherefore, if I should continue tempting this book so long till I had put it in order, I should resemble those which do make their apparel so long of the newest fashion until they are quite out of fashion, or like as the fiddlers do their strings, who rest them and temper them so long until they bring them all out of time, tune, and reason. Lest I should do so, I will let it go with this draft as it is. But, gentle reader, look not here to gather grapes of thorns, nor figs of thistles, nor a wild and a barren tree, nothing else but wild and barren fruit. Yet among dust sometimes there are pearls found, and in hand rocks gold and stones of great price. I have here, as it were mixed wheat and rye, barley and oats, beans and peas all together. Now take a little pains to separate that grain, which thou likest best for thine own benefit.
Well over a page long.
I was fighting for my life there.
His introduction is 14 pages of this. When I looked up the responses of people today who study sword fighting and such to this book, they deemed it to be surprisingly practical. He advises always trying to arrange fights in such a way that the sun is in your opponent's eyes. So our weeb listeners might recognize this as one of Miyamoto Musashi's favorite tricks. He tells you to run like hell if a fight becomes 2 against 1. He has a trick for if your weapon gets knocked out of your hands. What you're supposed to do is pull out your dagger and pretend you're going to throw it at your opponent's face, and then scramble for the weapon, because throwing a dagger that way won't actually do anything. And he has a short chapter on fighting while drunk. His main advice is don't do it. His style is focused on keeping your distance and controlling space. I found a YouTube video about this claim he makes, which is that with a really solid lunge, you can nail someone with a 4-foot long sword while your back foot is 12 feet away. So, Helen, I would like you to pull out the makeshift sword I had you acquire before this episode and just try and do a lunge where you kill someone who's 12 feet away.
Okay, wait. So let me get this straight. So the listener can't. The listener, if they had a visual, they might get confused and think that what I'm holding right now is a Swiffer mop, but it's not. It's actually a 4-foot sword. So get that straight. So it's. I need to start 12 feet away and then do a lunge, but not move my back foot forward.
That's right.
And I need to kill someone 12 feet away.
Yes.
Okay. So assuming that my wingspan is about 6 feet and change, I could see it. If you're like 6'3" and you have long arms, you could do it probably.
Yes. Yes. It turns out it is doable.
What's the average height of someone in 1617? Is it 6'3"?
I don't think it's 6'3". Yeah, you'd have to have a lot of training and flexibility to like snap this out too.
Oh yeah, no, like I could not do it, to be clear. I'm saying like if I did, big pains and much practice, I could I could figure it out eventually. Like if you gave me a year, like at the end of a year I could do it, I think.
I'm really glad you didn't hurt yourself doing that. I should have had you stretch or something before the episode. Okay, so for our purposes, there's not that much more to say about this particular book. There's a sort of memento mori section where he's like, listen, no matter how big a hotshot you think you are as a fighter, death comes in unexpected ways. And then he describes the death of a bunch of martial arts masters he's known. And the first one he talks about is this guy, Master Turner. And he says, he's a guy you've probably heard of because he was so good at stabbing eyes. But let me tell you, he just chopped at a bunch of people's heads and got lucky. And anyway, the last time he stabbed an eye, he immediately got shot and died. Not such a hot shot, actually. He should have followed my techniques.
This guy who's famous for being cool, well, he's a piece of shit and he should have listened to me. Like, what a fucking baller.
I know. And it's so funny, too, that the thing this guy is supposed to be, like, so cool for doing is just, like, stabbing people in the eye.
I feel like if you stab enough people in the eye, like, you get a reputation for it, Like, I don't know. I could see it.
Okay, and then he goes on to describe a bunch of other martial arts master deaths.
Henry Adlington, for killing his maester John Dewell, was hanged. Furlong, he drank a pint of aqua vitae at one draught, and he fell down and died presently. Westcote, for some unkindness received of his own daughter, he went into a wood near Perrin in Cornwall, and there hanged himself. Richard Carow, he died most miserably of the French disease in an old house near Plymouth, although he had a new suit of clothes from top to toe. Yet he was so loathsome a creature that nobody would let him harbor in his house, for part of his body was rotten and stunk above ground. Also, old Carter of Worcester lay a long time sick of a lingering disease, and being worn away to nothing but skin and bones, he died in his bed. And so of many more I could write, but it is not my intention to write a chronicle, and therefore these few shall serve for this time. I wrote it, but only to put you in mind, that you may so lead your lives daily and hourly, as if death were even at your heels.
Now, for the first book he published, this had at least 19 editions in England, and at least another 6 in Dutch.
The arraignment of lewd, idle, froward, and unconstant women, or the vanity of them, choose you whether with a commendation of wise, virtuous, and honest women. Pleasant for married men, profitable for young men, and hurtful to none.
The first edition of this book is published under the pseudonym Thomas Telltruth, which people would have recognized that was the pseudonym. God. But in the second edition, they either forgot to use his alias or just didn't bother.
Thomas Telltruth. Oh my God.
Okay, so here's how he opens up the introduction.
Musing with myself, being idle, and having little ease to pass the time withal, and I being in a great choler against some women, I mean more than one, and so in wrath of my fury, taking my pen in hand to beguile the time withal, indeed I might have employed myself to better use than in such an idle business, and it were better to pocket up a pelting injury than to entangle myself with such vermin, for this I know, that because women are women, therefore many will do that in an hour, which they many times will repent all their whole lifetime after. I know I shall be bitten by many because I touch many, but before I go any further, let me whisper one word in your ears, and that is this. Whatsoever you think privately, I wish you to conceal it with silence. lest in starting up to find fault you prove yourselves guilty of these monstrous accusations, which are here following against some women, and those which spurn, if they feel themselves touched, prove themselves stark fools in betraying their galled backs to the world. For this book touches no sort of women, but such as when they hear it will go about to reprove it. This is terrible. Oh my God. Okay, this is actually incredible because this is like a big bang moment, like, for a lot of the misogyny we've seen later, right? Like, condensed down into these few sentences, there's so much going on that we've seen, like, developed. But just to sit down and be like, I was bored and I was feeling mad about women, and so I decided to write about it. And maybe you might be upset. But if you complain, that just proves me right. So haha, bitch, fuck you. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Hate this.
Yeah, you're immediately getting this sort of like trollish, vicious air that's going on here. He describes himself at one point in this book as being engaged in bear baiting, which, if you're not familiar, is the medieval practice of torturing bears to death by chaining them up and having them fight dogs.
It was hugely popular entertainment. Like, I think actually every single Shakespeare play contains references to like bears and bear baiting, because it was literally like, what are we going to do tonight? Right? We got a couple pennies. We want to go to have some fun. We can go downtown and maybe we'll catch a play.
Yeah, literally right next door to the major theaters, there was what was called a bear garden, which is just a place for exclusively doing this.
Yeah, it's completely vile practice, but it was just like, it was the popular entertainment. Like, that was their version of Marvel slop. So it could always be worse, is the thing you need to realize.
Okay, another excerpt.
Women are all necessary evils, and yet not all given to wickedness, and yet many so bad that in my conceit, if I should speak the worst that I know by some women, I should make their ears glow that hear me, and my tongue would blister to report it. But it is a great discredit for a man to be accounted for a scold, for scolding is the manner of shrews. Therefore, I had rather answer them with silence which find fault, than strive to win the cucking stool from them.
Very contemporary.
Now, methinks I hear some courteous dames give their rash judgments, and say that I, having no wit, ramble upon women which have more wit than men. To answer you again, if I lie about you, judge me unkind. But if I speak the truth, I shall be the better believed another time. And if I had wrote never so well, it is impossible to please all, and if never so ill, yet I shall please some. Let it be well or ill, I look for no praise for my labor. Huge doubt there. I am weaned from my mother's teat, and therefore never more to be fed with her pap. Wherefore say what you will, for I will follow my own veins, and unfolding every pleat and showing every wrinkle of a woman's disposition.
There's an element of the time washing machine in this.
I mean, it's what we talked about with like the Cato episode, with like, oh, it's almost shames me for like the good women, which is also the same as that tweet about the like, oh, I saw the woman in like the, what was it, the crack sucking leggings, and I didn't want to confront her about it because like my wife was there, right? Like the same thing that we've seen examples from today and also from thousands of years ago of, oh, you know, it's gonna shame the good women if I really give it my all and say everything that I need to say about the bad women. But of course I need to say it anyway. And you can cancel me if you want.
I feel like we could take this excerpt and just have it be a manosphere post on X, like today. You'd have to adjust the spelling and diction a little bit, but like that's it.
Yeah, you know, people don't say, you know, but it is a great discredit for a man to be accounted for a scold. You would say like, all right, guys, I got to tell you all about women, and, you know, maybe it'll make some women feel bad to hear this because, you know, not all women are bad, and, you know, I don't want to be a nag, like, I'm not trying to be some bitch, but we got to be honest here, right? Like, this is literally just, you could just actually translate this into just contemporary English, and it would fit on a manosphere, like, Twitter account or something like that.
Okay, so we're actually not going to look at too many excerpts from this book because it's kind of repetitive and it's not that interesting once you've seen enough of it. But I do want to give you some flavor, and I do want to show you a little bit of some of the worst stuff that's in there.
You mean he doesn't have like a systematic and insightful analysis of like the role of women in society and the problem with women? Like, you mean it's just like repeating the same grievances over and over in like slightly different variances and talking about how smart he is and how brave he is for speaking the truth?
We're going to circle back to this. What you're saying is not just an own of him. This is like an actual plot point in the episode.
Okay.
Another excerpt.
Oh my God. Women be shopping? Are we doing women be Okay, I'll read it.
We're
Sorry.
doing women be shopping. Spoiler for people who are about to listen to this excerpt.
When a woman wanteth anything, she will flatter and speak fair. Not much unlike the flattering butcher who gently claweth the ox when he intendeth to knock him on the head. But the thing being once obtained and their desires gained, then they will begin to look big, and answer so stately and speak so scornfully that one would imagine they would never seek help nor crave comfort at thy hand any more. But a woman is fitly compared to a ship, which being never so well rigged, yet one thing or other is to be amended. Even so, give a woman all that she can demand today, yet she will be out of reparations tomorrow and want one thing or other. This is so funny. Like, women are only nice to you when they want something, but they want things all the time because women are like boats, right? Like, what is it they say? Like, the happiest day of your life is getting married and the second happiest day is getting divorced? Like, what's the
Helen, that's literally in this book.
Oh my God. Okay, so just to like
Except
spell it
not
out, that's
divorced.
the
It's when your wife dies, he says.
Oh, okay, but that's the thing people say about boats. Like, so he's continuing the boat analogy, right? Like, the happiest day is when you buy a boat and the second happiest day is when you sell it, except about women, and he literally just does it. Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, another excerpt.
I have really gotten inside the mind of the misogynist. That's probably not good for me, Sarah.
It's going to metastasize, and soon you will be a misogynist. I'm sorry.
Lust causeth you to do such foul deeds which makes your sore heads forever afterwards seem spotted with black shame and everlasting infamy, by which means your graves after death are closed up with time's scandal. And yet women are easily wooed, and soon won, got with an apple, and lost with the paring. Young wits are soon corrupted. Women's bright beauties breed curious thoughts, and golden gifts easily overcome wanton desires, with changing modesty into pastimes of vanity, and being once delighted therein, continue in the same without repentance. You are only the people's wonder, and misfortune's banding ball tossed up and down the world with woe upon woe. Yea, 10,000 woes will be galloping hard at your heels, and pursue you wheresoever you go. For those of ill report cannot long stay in one place, but roam and wander about the world, and yet ever unfortunate, prospering in nothing, forsaken and cast out of all civil companies, still in fear lest authority with the sword of justice bar them of liberty. Lo, thus your lives are despised, walking like night owls in misery, and no comfort shall be your friend, but only repentance, coming too late, and over dear bought, a penance and punishment due to all such hated creatures as these are. Therefore, believe all you unmarried wantons, and in believing grieve, that you have thus unluckily made yourself neither maids, widows, nor wives, but more vile than filthy channel dirt, fit to be swept out of the heart and suburbs of your country. Oh, then suffer not this world's pleasure to take from you the good thoughts of an honest life, but down, down upon your knees, you earthly serpents, and wash away your black sin with the Christ-all tears of true sorrow and repentance, so that when you wander from this enticing world, you may be washed and cleansed from this foul leprosy of nature. The, sexual undertones here are so uncomfortable. Okay, first, step one, imagine a sinful, lustful woman. Step two, yell at her to get on her knees. I don't know, guy,
Not to be too pop culture brand, but if you've seen The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he really is channeling the evil clergy member who's the villain of the movie, the one who's consumed with lust for the hot woman he sees in the streets and condemns her.
There is also a Shakespeare play, which is about a city that's all corrupt and terrible, and everybody is just, everybody is corrupt, but then, the Duke goes away, and his brother, who is this, obsessive, he wants to, get things in order and put things right, and so he arrests this guy who was just doing adultery, I think, is actually his crime, and he sentences him to death. and his sister, who is like a novice in a nunnery, so she's like going to become a nun, comes to try to like beg for his release. And then a bunch of the plot of the play is that the guy is like, I will release him if you sleep with me. And she's like, no. And then the brother is like, wait, why not? You could save my life. Like, I'm going to get sent to death. And it's about this kind of dynamic of like this obsession with order being really...
Also, this is kind of in a different writing style. This is specifically in the style of a Hectoring priest. It doesn't just like resemble the rhetoric of one. I think we can see in these excerpts that he kind of like shifts tones and like how he writes within each, which is odd. Another excerpt.
You're just like sending me these blocks of text that are just like the worst rhetoric imaginable. This is really putting me in the contraption. If a man talks of any kind of beast or fowl, presently the nature is known, as for example, the lions are all strong and hardy, the hares are all fearful and cowardly, the does are all simple, and so of all beasts and fowls the like, I mean, few are none swerving from this kind. But women have more contrary sorts of behavior than there be women, and therefore impossible for a man to know all, no, nor one part of women's qualities all the days of his life. Some with sweet words undermine their husbands, as Delilah did Samson, and some with chiding and brawling are made weary of the world, as Socrates and others. Socrates, when his wife did chide and brawl, would go out of the house till all were quiet again. But, because he would not scold with her again, it grieved her the more. One time she watched his going out and threw a chamber pot out of a window on his head. Ha ha, quoth he, I thought after all this thunder there would come rain. There is a history maketh mention of one man named Ananias, who invited a friend of his to go home with him to supper, but when he came home, he found his wife chiding and brawling with her maidens, whereat his guest was very much discontented. Ananias turning to him said, Good Lord, how impatient art thou? I have suffered her these 20 years, and canst not thou abide her 2 hours? By which means he caused his wife to leave chiding and laughed out the matter.
Okay, so this is boomer humor.
Yeah.
He's doing historical references, but just in the cause of like, I hate my wife jokes.
Yeah, it's I hate my wife, and then it's this like other layer of animals are all the same, which is also kind of not true, but let's bracket that for a second. You know, animals are all the same. We know how to handle lions, we know how to handle does, right? But women, they're all different from each other. And it's like, yeah, dude, people are not like, it's such a weird observation to make.
It's not that weird if you don't think women are people. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the reason I excerpted that is because a huge part of the book is just like that. Shitty boomer joke after shitty boomer joke, like couched within historical references, usually biblical references. There's a reason that this book resembles a collection of sexist jokes and scraps. Here's something I found in the literature. This is from a book by Woodbridge that I'll talk more about later.
Swetnam's habit of lifting passages from other authors for the School of Defense is the governing principle of the arraignment of women, which, much more than the School of Defense, is demonstrably a patchwork of passages taken from other works. The practice of copying other works was much criticized both before and in Swetnam's days. Thomas Dekker, a formidable practitioner of verbal abuse, coined the phrase falconry to brand the practice of preying on other works. He wrote, The falconer, having scraped together certain small parings of wit, he first cuts them handsomely in pretty pieces, and of those pieces doth he patch up a book, thereby providing a contemporary portrayal of a true scissors and paste man. That's really funny. I love that image.
So this is kind of like Uncle John's bathroom reader for sexist jokes of the 1600s.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was saying about some of those sort of different perspectives on like plagiarism. Like today, if it was found that somebody had done this, it would be like, okay, this book is getting pulled, right? Like it would just be completely unacceptable in the publishing industry. But back then, it was much more of a thing you could kind of get away with, but then some people really would criticize you. And there's really interesting things about, this is right around the period when like the contemporary notion of like authorship and owning a book and like being the owner of the book you author like really starts to come into play. So a really fun story I like here is, I think it was the 1590s that the first volume of Don Quixote is published by Cervantes. And then somebody writes an unauthorized sequel, which at the time would have just been like, yeah, somebody wrote a sequel, right? It wasn't really like, this notion of like the right of an author is like very, very new. And so then he writes a sequel where Don Quixote and Sancho Panza meet two other characters also named Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, who are implied to be the ones from the unauthorized sequel. And he basically is just like ragging on this guy who wrote the unauthorized sequel, right? But this is right around the time when authors were starting to have this feeling of like, hey, you should actually be responsible for the stuff in your book and own it. And there should be something called authorship.
This book is bad in the judgment of both contemporaries and later critics. They generally don't like that it's misogynistic, but mostly they just feel like it's a piece of shit as a work of craft. And people writing about it were just like baffled that it was selling so well.
Yeah, I mean, his style is terrible.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. And this feeds into the thing I really wanted to talk about, which is the reaction to Swetnam. Swetnam, apparently in total ignorance, wandered into a literary genre dating back to the 1500s, called by several names, and which I had never heard of until I did my initial poking around to figure out whether we should do a Swetnam episode. I found references to this genre in the literature as the woman question, the woman dispute, the woman controversy, and probably most common, people referred to it in French as the querelle des femmes.
The listeners who, again, are dealing with an audio medium cannot see the extent to which my grin got wider and wider with each one of these. Like, this is so funny. I don't know, like, the genre of the woman question, like, Jesus Christ.
When I say this was a literary genre, I mean that in the same sense that we might talk about the romance genre today. There was an understanding of rules and tropes about how books about whether women are good or bad should be structured and written. The main text I used here was one by Linda Woodbridge, Women in the English Renaissance. According to her, works in what she called the formal controversy about women, which is her term for the genre, have the following characteristics. And I'm paraphrasing. First off, they're primarily about the essential nature of women. Second, they're written in the spirit of charitable debate, with no overt lashing out at women. Third, they address the nature of women in general, not just wives. Fourth, they're highly theoretical, and they use examples of historical women to address their larger theoretical points and catalog the virtues and vices of women. Fifth, stylistically, they draw on classical modes of oration and dialogue. Woodbridge pinpoints the genre as starting with Sir Thomas Eliot's In Defense of Good Women in 1540. So this is not just like the dunking on women genre. This is like actual debate about are women good or bad.
This is upsetting. Like, yeah, this sucks, man. Are women good or bad? Like, okay, actually, hold on. Sorry. I guess my one thing is like all of those points are just, again, manosphere points, right? Like, okay, what was like point number one?
Primarily about the essential nature of women.
Right. Okay. So it's like, it's this, first it's going to just got to be about women in general, right? Point number two was it's offered in the spirit of charitable debate and it's not about lashing out. Like, yeah, like this is like the classic shit people are still doing, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm just saying, like, here's my points, right? Don't cancel me. Don't jump down my throat, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, we got to have an open mind. You got to hear all sides. Like, maybe all women truly are ontologically evil, right? We just have to consider it, right? And then the use of, like, classical rhetoric and debate, like, again, I don't know. All these strategies are still so prevalent. Like, when are we going to get rid of these guys? How do we get rid of these guys?
Yeah, there's a lot of attempts in the scholarship I saw to try and, like, trace aspects of early feminism back to these works. And it's true that you do have women writing in this genre defending women, but it's within such a patriarchal framework that, like, it's very difficult to see it as a true progenitor of, like, contemporary feminist thinking. Helen, can you describe for our audience what it means to be the main character on social media?
Once someone, like, if somebody says something really stupid and a bunch of people start, like, dunking on them, people will just start, like, who don't want to, maybe it starts with people who don't want to participate in the dunking. They just start making posts and they'll just assume you know who they're talking about. And if, like, enough people do this, everyone does know who you're talking about. And so it's just, like, the person everyone's talking about in a large cluster of whatever website it is.
Yes. And in particular, it's the person that everyone hates.
Yeah. It's never good.
So the origin of this term is a post about how there's one main goal on Twitter every day, and that goal is never to be the main character of Twitter. Swetnam becomes the main character. We get 3 pamphlets, which are kind of like the op-eds of the days, except op-eds these days are produced in massive quantities. There are, like, way fewer pamphlets than there are, like, op-eds then. And here's the first one that comes out.
I love this title. A muzzle for melastomas, the cynical baiter of and foul-mouther barker against Eve's sex, or an apologetic answer to that irreligious and illiterate pamphlet made by Swetnam, by Rachel Specht.
Yeah, so melastomas means just black mouth. You can see right from the title that these works are trying to sell themselves by presuming familiarity with Swetnam's actual text. For example, Swetnam makes a point of describing himself as bear baiting, and here we are with a reference to, like, baiting right up at the top. There's also this common theme we're going to see of describing him as needing to be muzzled, describing him as like a mad dog kind of thing. This is the only one of the works that's published that isn't either anonymous or published under a pseudonym. Here's the second pamphlet that comes out against him.
Esther hath hanged Haman, or an answer to a lewd pamphlet entitled The Arraignment of Women, with the arraignment of lewd, idle, froward, and unconstant men and husbands, divided into 2 parts. The first proveth the dignity and worthiness of women out of divine testimonies, the second showing the estimation of the feminine sex in ancient and pagan times, all which is acknowledged by men themselves in their daily actions. Written by Esther Swetnam, neither maid, wife, nor widow, yet really all, and therefore experienced to defend all. John 8:7, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, this is quite witty.
Yeah, I like that the woman named Esther is like, Esther hath hanged Haman, which...
Well, do you want to indicate for the listener, like, what's going on there?
It is a biblical reference to what is, at least for Jews, the story of Purim, where Haman convinces Esther's husband, who's the king, who I am admitting now I am bad Jew. I can't think of the name of the king, but basically to get rid of the Jews. And then it's an example of, like, a strong, powerful woman. And she manages to convince her husband to save them. And Haman is the villain of the story. It's actually really fun when you celebrate Purim in Judaism. You have little noisemakers, and you, like, make, like, anytime someone says Haman, you make noise and, like, boo. There's a very, like, good tradition of just, like, shitting on this guy. So she's kind of tapping into that a little bit.
Also notice she describes herself as neither maid, wife, nor widow, yet really all, and therefore
experienced to defend all.
We hear him talking about how women are damned to a life of misery and a life of becoming neither a maid, a wife, nor a widow. So again, like, there's this familiarity with the text. That's part of how this book is selling itself. Last one.
The worming of a mad dog, or a sop for Cerberus, the jailer of hell. No confutation, but a sharp repudiation of the baiter of women. By Constantia Munda.
Okay, so first off, the term worming here, I actually had a hell of a time tracking down what was meant by that. It turns out that going way back to ancient Greece, there was a belief that a particular muscle under the tongue of a dog was actually the cause of madness. That muscle is called the lyta, or the worm. And so it used to be a practice to just cut this muscle out when they were a pup, which was called worming. That's wildly fucked up, but also that's what's going on here.
Wait. How did they fit? Like, rabies persisted in dogs where they had cut this muscle out. How did that not over
Helen,
thousands of years?
This belief is widespread well into the 1800s. It's unreal.
I know they didn't have, like, modern medicine, but I guess it took them forever to figure out to wash their fucking hands. So whatever. Oh my god.
The scan here has some weird highlighting and stuff. That's because to actually get a scan of this, I ended up on a conspiracy site about how Marlowe actually wrote all of Shakespeare's plays. And after it had firmly established that, it went on to prove that basically everything else in the time period was also written by Marlowe.
That's so cool.
And this is one of the works that that apparently Marlowe
they
wrote.
think he wrote this pamphlet?
Yes, they think Marlowe wrote The Worming of a Mad Dog.
Did he also write The Arraignment of Women? Oh, no, that's plagiarized. Okay, never mind.
This pamphlet goes significantly harder than the previous two. In fact, the second one was actually written in the querelle de femme genre. The other two are not. This one is more polemical, maybe a little bit closer to Swetnam's tone. However, this is still not the main thing I wanted to talk about. The main thing I wanted to talk about was the final response to Swetnam, a play which ran at one of the least prestigious and most popular theaters in London. Here's a scan of the bill.
Swetnam the Woman Hater, Arraigned by Women, a new comedy acted at the Red Bull by the late Queen's servants.
You can see on the cover art, there's a bunch of women all arranged in some sort of courtroom scene, and sitting on the throne at the center of the courtroom scene is another woman wearing a crown, and the one man in the figure is this guy with his back to the artist, camera, whatever, which you can take to be Swetnam. I have a question. Helen, are you ready to do some acting?
Absolutely.
Okay. The A-plot of this is a ripoff of a novel called Grisel y Mirabella. It's a genre of chivalric love, so we'll talk about it a little bit, but as little as we can get away with, because what we're really interested in is the B-plot, which is about Swetnam. From the dramatis personae, we learn that Swetnam is in Italy. He's going by the alias Misogynos, and he has a clown servant named Swash.
Misogynos?
Yes.
I'm so excited. I immediately want them to, like, mount this play. Like, I'm going to contact the local theater immediately.
Helen, would you like to be Swash or Misogynos?
Ah, the difficult choice. I think I gotta be Misogynos. I'm in the mind of the misogynist.
Okay, here we go. Scene 2. Enter Misogynous Solus.
By this, my thundering book is pressed abroad. I long to hear what a report it bears. I know 'twill startle all our city dames, worse than the roaring lions or the sound of a huge double cannon. Swetnam's name will be more terrible in women's ears than ever yet a misogynist's hath been.
That's the first use of misogynist in the English language.
Interesting.
Enter Clown. Puff! Oh, give me some air. I am almost stifled. Puff! Oh, my sides.
From whence comest thou in such a puffing heat? Hast thou been running for a wager, Swash? Thou art horribly embossed, hunted animal foaming at the mouth. Where hast thou been? My life, he was haunted with some spirit.
A spirit? I think all the devils in hell have had a pinch at my haunches. I have been among the Furies. The Furies! A pox on your book. I have been paid a faith. You have set all the women in the town in an uproar.
Why, what's the matter, Swash?
Never was poor Swash so lashed and pashed and crashed and dashed as I have been. Look to yourself. They're up in arms for you.
Why, have they weapons, Swash?
The weapons, sir, I'll be sworn they have, and cutting ones. I felt the smart of 'em, from the loins to the legs, from the head to the hams, from the front to the foot. I have not one free spot. Oh, I can show you, sir, such characters.
What dost thou mean, man? Wilt shame thyself?
Why, here's none but you and I, sir, is there?
Good, Faith. This was a brave revenge.
If it be so good, would you had it for me.
And if I live, I will make all the world to hate as I do this affliction. Woman!
But we shall be afflicted in the meantime. Pray, let's leave this land. If we stay here, we shall be torn to pieces. Would we had kept in our own country. There we are safe enough. You might have written, railed your belly full, and few or none would contradict you, sir.
Oh, but for one that writ against me, Swash, I'd had a glorious conquest in that land. How my books took effect, how greedily the credulous people swallowed down my hooks, how rife debate sprang betwixt man and wife. The little infant that could hardly speak would call his mother whore. Oh, it was rare.
Oh, damned rogue. I stay but here and hope to see him hanged, and carry news to England. Then I know the women there will never see me want. For God, he knows, I love him with my heart, but dare not show it for my very ears. What course, sir, shall we take to hide ourselves?
The same we did at Bristow, fencing boy. Oh, 'tis a fearful name to females, Swash. I have bought foils already, set up bills, hung up my two-hand sword, and changed my name. Call me Misogynos.
A sodden nose.
This is kind of hilarious. I love this.
So there's a bunch of A-plot stuff. The next time we see Swetnam, he wanders onto the scene and immediately starts ranting about some woman he saw off stage and how mad it made him. Enter Misogynos and Scanfardo.
A woman! Why, the more I think of their wickedness, the more incomprehensible I find it, for they are cozening, colleaguing, ungrateful, deceitful, wavering, waspish, light, toyish, proud, sullen, discourteous, cruel, inconstant, and whatnot. Yet they were created and by nature formed, and therefore of all men to be avoided.
Okay, so there's two characters, Lorenzo and Iago, that see this. I'll be Lorenzo. Oh, impious conclusion. What is he?
I ne'er had conversation with him yet, but by report I'll tell you. He's a man whose breeding hath been like the scarab, altogether upon the excrement of the time, and being swollen with poisonous vapors, he breaks wind in public to blast the reputation of all women. His acquaintance has been altogether amongst whores and bawds, and therefore speaks but in his own element. His own unworthy foul deformity, because no female can effect the same, begets in him despair, and despair ennui. He cares not to defame their very souls, but that he's of the Turk's opinion. They have none. He is the viper, that not only gnaws upon his mother's fame, but seeks to eat through all women's reputations.
Is it possible that Sicily should breed such a degenerate monster, shame of men?
Blame not your country. He's an Englishman. Okay, just quick gloss here. Do you know who the Turk is of the Turk's opinion?
Yeah, so this is an Islamophobic myth going way, way, way back, which claims that in the Quran it says that women don't have souls.
Interesting.
You can still see this spread around today.
I don't know if I've heard that. That's kind of fascinating.
I've actually seen this doing research for this podcast before. Like, it's a persistent thing.
Interesting. I do really like this kind of... There's something really funny here about this takedown of him, which is like... He thinks this about women because these are the women he hangs around with.
Right, the low women?
I would say that it is maybe sex worker exclusionary radical feminism or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little, but it is funny because it's kind of turning around the thing he was doing in the pamphlet, right? You can again kind of see some familiarity with the pamphlet because he's saying, oh, if you're affected by this, it proves you right. And they're saying, well, the fact that you think this is what women are like says something about the kind of women you hang out with. Obviously not a good feminist argument, but you can really see still people are familiar with this pamphlet, and it's like a pretty classic thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to write a play, and then I'm going to get all the dunks out that I wanted to get on the pamphlet by just having other characters dunk on this guy. It's pretty good.
Also, at least the way I read this, they're being like, this guy's so ugly, he can't get laid. And that's why he hates women. Which is a line of argument I see so much these days and which drives me absolutely up the fucking wall. Because it's not a good criticism.
Yeah, and it feels like it's a good criticism because it feels like, oh, we're really going to hit him where it hurts. But it's like, you're not going to motivate people to be feminists by saying it will get you laid. Like, that's not...
If only it were so easy.
I do like some of the monologue. We didn't really talk about it, but some of the monologue from Misogynist where he's talking about how beautiful it is that babies who can barely speak are calling their mother whore.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
That's such a good line. And you can really feel this is someone who sat with this pamphlet and hated it so much and was like, oh my God, I hate this guy so much. I need to like write him as a fucking clown. So that element of it is a little cathartic, even though not necessarily a feminist play.
Okay, so we have to talk a little bit about the A-plot. So the King of Sicily has a daughter and a long-lost son. And the long-lost son is the guy who's calling himself Lorenzo, as well as an evil scheming vizier. And for reasons, there ends up being a trial in which the princess's life depends on determining whether men or women are the more moral gender. Arguing for the men, we have Swetnam. For the women, we have Lorenzo disguised as Atlanta the Amazon. The jury is all men, and Swetnam wins. He uses arguments from his book, by the way, of course.
Okay.
The next day, enter Misogynist and Swash.
Swash.
At your buckler, sir?
Perceivest thou nothing, Swash?
How mean you, sir?
No strange sign of alteration, hum?
Beyond imagination.
How, good Swash?
Why, from a fencer, you are turned into orator.
Oh, cadunt arma togae, that's no wonder. Perceivest thou nothing else? Look I not pale? Are not my arms enfolded, my eyes fixed, my head dejected, my words passionate? And yet perceivest thou nothing?
Cadunt arma togae means, like, let the arms be subordinate to the toga. It's like military to civil subordinates. Let me see. Methinks you look, sir, like some desperate gamester that had lost all his estate in a dicing house. You met not with those money changers, did you? Or have you fallen amongst the female sex, and they have paid you for your last day's work?
No, no, thou art as wide, as short in my disease, thou never canst imagine what it is, unless I tell thee, Swash, I am in love.
In love?
Nay, 'tis such a wonder, Swash, I scarce believe it can be so myself, and yet it is.
Okay, I cut out a little bit here. We're skipping ahead slightly. Who in the name of women should this be?
Oh no.
That's right.
Oh no! What an obtuse conception dost thou bear? Did not I tell thee 'twas Atlanta, Swash?
Who? She Amazonian dame, your advocate? A masculine feminine? Helen has her eyes buried in her hands.
If Misogynist turns out to be a chaser, I'm losing it. I'm going to say that right now. Like, if this is just about out dunking on him because he's a chaser, I, Swash, she must be more than female. Has the That's a dick joke. Like, the person who wrote that meant that as a dick joke.
Yeah.
She must be more than female, has the power to mollify the temper of my love.
Why, she's the greatest enemy you have.
The greater is my glory, Swash, in that having vanquished all, I attain her. The prize consists alone in my eternal credit and renown. Oh, what a race of witty orators shall we beget betwixt us. Come, good Swash, I'll write a letter to her presently, which thou shalt carry. If thou speedst, I swear, thou shalt be Swetnam's heir.
So Swash takes the letter to Atlanta, who is just like hanging out with the queen, talking about recent events. Atlanta is like, Swash, you hate this guy, right? And Swash is like, oh yeah, I hate this guy. So the three of them all decide to collude against Swetnam and lure him to a particular orchard by responding positively to his letter. He shows up, Atlanta is there, and from hiding come the women of Sicily, and they capture him and put him on trial.
Oh my god. Okay.
This next bit, I'm not quite sure how to like split it up because it's got more than 2 characters. Maybe we could just alternate and say who we are. I've edited this section down, just like for brevity. There's all these women in the audience, including someone whose character name is Old Woman. And to start with, we hear her saying, guilty, 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 guilty of woman slander and defamation.
Atlanta. Produce the books and read the title of them.
Loretta, that is a maid of the princess. The arraignment of idle, forward, and inconstant women.
Okay, who's this next character?
Aurelia, that's the queen.
Aurelia. What say you, sir, to this?
Misogynist. Show me my name, and then I'll yield unto it.
Aurelia. No, that's your policy and cowardice. You durst not publish what you dared to write. Thy man is witness to it. Sirrah, confess, or you shall be served of the same sauce. That part is to Swash.
Swash. No. I'll tell you all. He is no fencer. That's but for a show. And then there's this long monologue where he throws Swetnam under the bus as hard as he can in every respect.
Amazing.
And he ends it with the line, then we came hither. This is all, forsooth.
Aurelia. 'Tis enough.
Misogynist. 'Tis all as false as women.
The crowd just yells, stop his mouth.
Atlanta. Either be quiet or you are gagged again.
Aurelia. Proceed in judgment.
Atlanta. Madam, thus it is. First, he shall wear this muzzle to express his barking humor against womankind, and he shall be led and publicly shown in every street of the city, and be bound in certain places to a post or stake, and beaten by all the honest women in the parish.
Misogynos. Is that the worst? There will not one be found in all the city.
Atlanta. Then he shall be whipped quite through the land, till he come to the sea coast, and then be shipped and sent to live amongst the infidels.
Aurelia. Call in his books, and let 'em all be burned and cast away, and his arraignment now put in the press, that he may live a shame unto his sex.
Then Swetnam is led away, and that's the last of him we see in the play, until the epilogue. Enter Swetnam muzzled and hauled in by women.
Maybe for this one, I'll do Swetnam.
I'll do the others.
Why do you hail me thus? Is't not enough I have withstood a trial, been arraigned, endured the torture of sharp-pointed needles, the whip, and old wives' nails, but I must stand to have another jury pass on me?
Loretta. It was a general wrong, therefore must have a general trial, and a judgment too. And the princess chimes in. The greatest wrong was mine. He sought my life, which fact I freely pardon, to prove women are neither tyrannous nor cruel, though you report us so.
I now repent, and thus to you, kind judges, I appeal. Methinks I see no anger in your eyes, mercy and beauty best do sympathize, and here forever I put off this shape, and with it all my spleen and malice too, and vow to let no time or act escape in which my service may be shown to you. And this my hand, which did my shame commence, shall with my sword be used in your defense.
And that's the end of the play.
What a cornball ending.
I know, right?
I don't know. I really wanted to like this more, but as soon as it's like, okay, first we're going to make fun of him because, like, he's attracted to a woman who's secretly a man, like, fuck off. Oh my God.
Okay, so here's the thing. At no point is there like Atlanta was like actually a man kind of thing going on. In fact, she's just like hanging out with other women and like showing solidarity with them and like participating in their communal thing, including the trial of Swetnam. And it's just like, accept it. It's fine, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Okay.
Second, I kept thinking of fucking Paddington while I was reading this.
Oh my god.
Okay, for the listeners who have not seen them, in the first 2 Paddington movies, there are protracted bits where there's like a security guard guy who is a chaser and is really into men who have dressed up as women for plot reasons. Just came to mind.
I do think it's funny, like, one of the other plays this reminded me of, which I think I've decided I'm not really going to be able to do an episode on, but, right, there's famously a pretty misogynist Shakespeare play, The Taming of the Shrew, which is all about how women, right, it's about one woman in particular who's a shrew, and then this guy who comes in and who's like, I'm going to tame her, right? And even some of this stuff that Swetnam is saying in this thing about being in love with Atalanta is... like, he's saying, oh, I will be, right, renowned for being able to, like, tame this woman, right? Like, I will, for having conquered her, right? This notion of conquering the woman is, like, a big part of the sort of action of Taming of the Shrew. And people try to play these games with Taming of the Shrew where they're like, oh, it's all set inside a frame narrative of this, like, drunk guy that they're making fun of by putting on this play for him. And you can kind of play that a little bit, but it's not great. And it's got some pretty gross stuff at the end where this woman gives a speech about, like, serving her husband well. And one of the interesting things about it is that another playwright wrote a play called The Tamer Tamed a few years later where, like, the main character, or the guy in The Taming of the Shrew just gets shit on. Like, there was kind of this, like, culture of writing plays to respond to pop culture things. Like, even Shakespeare engages in this at times. Like, one of his characters in some of his history plays is really popular, so he writes, like, fan fiction of his own plays, and that's what The Merry Wives of Windsor is about, which is actually also about a guy getting shit on by women. So there's, like, interesting dualities here. And these, like, ambiguities where it's like, okay, this is, like, maybe there is also a genre here of, like, the play where it's the misogynist getting shit on, which is nevertheless, like, not very feminist. Like, I would say this is, like, not a very feminist play on the basis of at least the excerpts we've read. But it's, like, it's funny, like, as much as there's this appetite for, like, oh, we're going to talk about how women are bad, there's also this appetite for, like, women getting revenge on these, like, shitty men. But it's not necessarily, like, a feminist genre. Maybe there's something to explore there.
I actually do think this is a feminist play. I don't think it's a very feminist play. I don't think it's sort of up to our standards of feminism. But this doesn't strike me as less feminist than, like, a lot of lib feminism that I see floating around today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess, and I've talked a little bit about this in the past, where it's like, okay, maybe we should accept that, like, feminism should just be things that call themselves feminist, and then we can critique things as being different tendencies with good or bad aspects, like, within feminism. But I guess part of what I'm saying is, like, I'm trying to think of other examples of, like, lib feminism that we also critique along these lines. A lot of those today, like, are explicitly trying to say, like, this is feminist. And, you know, I don't know, at least so far, if this play is really trying to say this is a feminist play, or if it's just, this guy sucks, let's make fun of him, right? So I don't know if it's a feminist play so much on those two levels. One is like, yeah, we definitely have critiques to make about what it thinks are good ways of dunking on this guy. But the other one is, it's not totally clear if the author or the company that puts it on is thinking of themselves as engaging in something broader than just dunking on this guy, right?
Well, there's something kind of interesting here, which is, I describe this theater as one of the most popular and least prestigious in London. And in fact, it had a reputation at the time as the rowdiest theater in London. And, like, not actually a very woman-friendly one. And so there's this whole discussion in the scholarship about, like, what putting on this play says about their attempts to, like, shift who their audience was.
Right, but I think it's interesting because I think you could also turn that around and say, okay, this is an audience which is not a particularly, woman-heavy or feminist audience. So what is the function of this play? And I think it's a similar function to a lot of what we would critique as not good feminist media today, which is if you get too explicit and too heavy-handed with being misogynist, then it'll start to make people who even are kind of misogynist uncomfortable. So you do some kind of score settling, and then that stops you from actually having to do any real changes to your analysis of how the world works or anything like that. But you get to be like, oh, look, we put on the feminist play, right?
Mm-hmm. You critique Andrew Tate, but you don't critique Bill Clinton, say.
Yeah. I think there is definitely something to be said about this comparison between, like, early 17th century like pamphlet culture and Twitter, because this is also like, this is a comparison I've seen made before, because people do talk about the democratizing influence of not just like the invention of the printing press, which was a 15th century invention, but streamlining and it becoming cheaper for people to just like print pamphlets all the time, and how this had political effects, because you do have this sense in which anyone with, it lowered the bar significantly to being able to publish things. And so you kind of get the same thing you get on Twitter, which is that, there's that phenomenon where like journalists will complain about cancel culture on Twitter. And there are situations where people, whatever, right? Like this isn't the podcast where we analyze what cancel culture is. But like one of the things that they're talking about is just like, before Twitter, it was much harder for me to go on Twitter and be like, you're a fucking idiot at a specific journalist, and now it's very easy. And journalists don't like that, and so they're like, we're being canceled. But there's kind of a similar thing here, right, where this guy writes a book, or also the writing of the book was probably much cheaper. I mean, it was much cheaper, and it's unclear if he would have been able to publish a book if it needed to be handwritten. But also people could just write these pamphlets and plays. So it's kind of funny to see this is like another element of the time washing machine that's like not maybe so bad, where it's like, yeah, there is always this kind of level of democratizing of media production. And it's funny to see where these things like hit the same notes. Let's do FAG ratings.
Let's do FAG ratings. So we rate each of our authors on a 3-point scale. We rate their ferocity, their arrogance, and their gullibility, 1 to 5 for each. This is going to be tricky because we really know so little about this guy, and the main text here is just like completely plagiarized.
Keeping in mind that like a 1 is like not normal, right? Like a 1 is still like misogynist. I kind of don't know if I can do ferocity higher than a 2 for this guy. Like, it's so lazy to just be like, oh, I was bored and I was thinking about how much I hate women, and so I decided to write about it, and then just copy and paste a bunch of shit. Like, come on, man. Like,
I'm absolutely on the same page. He's a 1 on ferocity for me.
Okay, I think I'm going to go down to a 1 as well. Okay, how are we feeling about arrogance? I think higher, but not at a 5. Like,
Helen, he might be a 1 on arrogance for me.
Interesting. I think I'm going to give him a 2. Oh, but you're right. Like,
the problem fundamentally is that our author here is just some fucking dude. Like, it takes a lot of time and effort to write a book, even if you're stealing every bit of it and cutting and pasting it. So he's not like a normal guy. But at the same time, I don't think of him as that distinct from the guy who just, like, I don't know, buys a sexist joke book.
Yeah, I think I can see your point. I think I'm going to stick with a 2, because I could imagine someone being less arrogant and still being someone we want to rate, but not much less. So I'm going to go with a 2. I have no sense of gullibility here at all. Again, because we have such an empty, like, we have so little information about him. Like, we don't have a sense, right? I mean, gullibility is also something that it's a more complicated category, because we're trying to measure, like, okay, here's how I think we've most successfully described, like what gullibility is systematizing, right? Gullibility is if we understand what the role that this person has in the social reproduction of misogyny or of whatever the bigotry is, like how aware of that role is this person? And so someone like, you know, Enoch Powell, we made a gullibility 5 because he is not, like, he thinks that he's like a huge like leader and iconoclast and he's changing hearts and minds, but really he's like, that's not what he was doing and that's not what he was for. Whereas like Leacock kind of knew exactly that he was just like riding the grift, it feels like, from reading his things. So this is where I'm saying I don't really know what Swetnam's role is in reproducing this stuff. I think probably a 1 for gullibility, because I think his role is pretty clearly like just the participation in and creation of this genre, or not creation of the genre, but continuing of this genre.
Well, that's part of why he got such a hard time, is because he wasn't exactly continuing the genre. He was blundering into it and fucking it up.
Okay, so I could see like a 2 or a 3, just because like, dude, you're supposed to stick in the genre. Like, we have rules and you didn't know, you were a little blind to the rules. You didn't quite understand the way the game is played. You're a little stupid. I'm going to give him a 2 for that.
I think a 2 is fair. I think we're in agreement.
So that means I give him a 5 and you give him a 4, which is interesting because it's the guy who invented misogyny, and yet we're rating him very low. So, you know, misogyny, we don't really care about it that much.
We're going to pivot this podcast away from that and toward topics like AI and cryptocurrency, actually.
This podcast is brought to you by crypto.com. No, it's not. Oh my God. All right. I think the only thing left to do is, if you enjoyed listening to this, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Odium Symposium. For $5 a month, you can get a few days early access to episodes. You can get a shout out on the podcast. You can help us out in being able to produce this and maybe make more bonus content.
We would love to make bonus content. We would love to have that make sense.
Yeah. So also you could review us, tell your friends. We don't really know how to market a podcast, and we're hoping that you will just do it for us. So
you could get one of those layers on your cars, you know, like a lot of Cybertrucks have, where they'll have like a naked moaning like hentai woman, except it's an ad for Odium Symposium instead. Drive it around town.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be cool, Helen. But
There's really nothing real.
I want them
There
to
is
think it'd
no
be
real.
cool, so
But
they'll do
that's
it.
what's called the postmodern mentality.
If you do
I couldn't
that, maybe it will
resist
help
the
you
worst
get, like,
racist
there.
remark.
The adventure of life justifies its suffering.
Okay.
I don't want to
we're
see him
opening
having
ourselves up to
political
legal liability
succubus with
somehow.
Do it
goblins.
live.
But
Yeah,
Does
we
Trump
should
have
just
babies
tell
with
them
a
this
goblin?
stuff.
Do it live.
Turn against us like
Okay,
Darth
let's end
Vader.
the recording. Let's
Do
get
it
that
live.
Now listen, you
We are not
all
licensed
man, you and
pickup
your
artists.
goddamn
This
face.
is not-
You'll stay plastered.
I was going to have a guest speaker,
Bye.
but the person I had invited in died.
Some level of masochism.